National security watchers and aviation analysts all around the world have been stunned by what happened on Wednesday morning over the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. A confrontation between fighter aircraft from the Pakistan Air Force and the Indian Air Force within visual range, something that very few people had ever thought possible in a time of beyond visual range aerial combat, actually took place between Pakistani F-16s and Indian Air Force MiG-21s. As you probably know from the biggest headlines that came out from that big confrontation, an Indian Air Force pilot was finally captured after he had to bail out in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. But this wasn't before he managed to shoot down an F-16. The Indian Air Force has claimed that they shot down an aircraft. There is reason to believe that this was an F-16, but there is a huge cover-up over where exactly this fighter aircraft is and where the pilot is, especially after Pakistan first claimed that 2 aircraft had been shot down, 2 pilots were in its captivity, and then it changed its stand. But the big dramatis personae in this huge confrontation are 3 fighter aircraft. The F-16 of the Pakistan Air Force, the MiG-21 Bison of the Indian Air Force, and in the background, Sukhoi Su-30 air dominance fighter. So we're going to take you through what these fighters are really all about. You're probably hearing a lot of things about comparisons between these fighters. We're going to tell you what the salient, important features of these aircraft are, how different they are from each other, and just why this is such a huge story for national security watchers and aviation watchers everywhere. Starting with the F-16, because that's what the Indian government says it actually shot down. They say it was a jet. There is reason to believe it was an F-16. It happens to be one of the most successful fighters ever built. It's of course an American fighter. The Pakistan Air Force operates about 85 of these spread across a number of units located at least 3 air bases. These are fighters that are armed with very capable air-to-air missiles, including the AMRAAM and the Sidewinder missile. It also deploys laser-guided bombs of many kinds. It has quite advanced sensors and radars. It is capable of rapid air interception at short notice, and that's one of the reasons why this particular fighter, easily Pakistan's most capable, was probably deployed for this air intrusion, across the line of control. These are fighters that constantly patrolled Pakistani airspace during the Kargil war as well. They stayed in the air to try and ward off Indian jets in case they decided to cross the line of control. These fighters have scored many kills, in Afghanistan especially during the Russian campaign there. They've managed to shoot down many aircraft over there. Like I said, one of the most successful fighters ever built. Over 4,500 have been built. A large number of those are of course still in the US Air Force services, but also exported to many other countries. At least 20 countries operate the F-16, and the F-16 incidentally is also on offer to India. Now coming to the MiG-21 fighter, and the MiG-21 doesn't have a great reputation in Indian Air Force service. In popular culture, it's been labelled as a flying coffin. Rang De Basanti gave it an even more notorious reputation. But this is a fighter, I must tell you, that the Indian Air Force operates in very large numbers, nearly 200 of them. It was developed during the Cold War. It's a Soviet-era fighter, and it must be admitted that this is a very, very old fighter, even though it's actually been upgraded with newer weapons and sensors not very, very long ago. Nearly 200 of them currently in service with the Indian Air Force. It has the highest landing speed of any fighter in the Indian inventory, and compared to many other fighters as well, which is one of the reasons why it's one of the most challenging aircraft to land. It has such a high landing speed. It is currently armed with the R-73 heat-seeking missile. It has certain other longer range weapons as well, but the R-73 heat-seeking missile is one of its primary weapons and has been used in the past as well. It's used for quick reaction air defense missions, very much like the one where this MiG-21 went up against an F-16 from the Pakistan Air Force. So they're very easy to turn around and get into the air quickly. Like I said, it was upgraded using the Bison program with Russia some years ago, where they were given new sensors and weapons. So the F-16 and the MiG-21 are 2 fighters that went head to head. But in Indian airspace, also operating during this evolving situation is another famous fighter that you've heard of. It's the Sukhoi Su-30. It happens to be one of the Indian Air Force's most potent fighters, and these really are the big daddy of the Indian Air Force fighters in every way. They also, in terms of size, are much larger than any of the fighters that we currently operate. It's an air superiority fighter, which means when it's in the air, it is menacing enough for that airspace to be, for anyone to actually think twice before entering that airspace, simply because they have long-range weapons. It's built for air combat, strike, as well as electronic warfare. They've got jamming pods, electronic warfare equipment that can actually disable equipment on other aircraft or systems on the ground. So those are very lethal. It's got a long-range mission capability. It can be refueled like some of our other aircraft. So pilots and Su-30s can stay in the air for quite a long time. The Air Force currently operates upwards of 250 Sukhois. It can ultimately operate a much larger number than that. So that makes the Indian Air Force the larger operator of the Su-30 in the world, even more than Russia itself. The Sukhoi Su-30 is being integrated with the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, which has a range upwards of 300 kilometers. So imagine that. Fighters wouldn't even have to cross into hostile airspace to deliver a strike weapon of this kind. So a Sukhoi Su-30 will get the BrahMos weapon system in just a matter of months. With more orders, the Indian Air Force could operate almost 300 Sukhoi fighters. So the fleet of this highly capable fighter is likely to increase very soon. The Sukhoi Su-30 will also be deploying beyond visual range air-to-air missiles like India's Astra and possibly other weapons as well in the near future, which will make them even more capable aircraft. So those are the three fighters that we're really looking at, part of this evolving and dramatic situation. There are other fighters as well, but these are the three fighters that you're likely to hear about the most now and in the coming days.